No, I was saying that
Yeah.
it's just one of those exams that doesn't even like really, and like most standardized tests don't really like assess how much you know of things. It's really just like
Yep.
getting good at
How good are you at taking the tests, right? Not
exactly.
really.
Because
Yeah,
I know students who
it's true.
3.8, 3.9 have done really good in all the bios and
Yeah.
all chemistries, and it's
So
a different beast. And it's just like because that's not what this exam is, unfortunately.
the MCAT. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth episode of the Premed Live podcast. Today we have with us Jamie Camino. Hi, hello Jamie. How you doing?
Day before, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Jamie. All right, so today the MCAT, right? The elephant in the room. We're gonna be talking about it. A lot of our listeners know who you are, Jamie. They already know who you are already, but can you tell us who Jamie is for
Sure.
our listeners who are not, yeah, who don't know who Jamie is?
Thank you.
Yeah,
So my name is Jamie Camino. I've been working in higher ed for the past like 8 years. I was working at Lehman for the past 7 years and just recently transitioned to BMCC as a program coordinator for a Title V grant called Conexiones Connections, which is related to helping Latino, male, and Black and Brown students to graduate on time. But besides my higher ed experience, I'm also a non-traditional student in the sense that, I decided later in my life that I wanted to go back to medical school. So I probably within the last 4 years took all the pre-med requirements at Lehman and other institutions. And now I'm in the MCAT phase, which is
yeah.
a long phase.
Let's get it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Oh yeah. So for those who don't know, Jamie is like a huge how should I say, a huge basket of resources. Is that a good word? Like a good term to put it? But yeah, so this is where I wanted to bring her on today to share her knowledge about the MCAT. If anyone knows the MCAT better than you, what is Jamie? Okay, it's Jamie Camino. So yeah, today you guys are gonna get to hear from her first perspective and fresh perspective of about the MCAT and from her. Pretty much all the experience and knowledge that she's gained over the years about it. So yeah, let's get to it, and hopefully you guys can learn from it, and it can be beneficial to you all. If it does, let me know in the comments for sure, and like the video. All right, so Jamie, let's dive right into it.
Yes.
What about the MCAT? What is this exam?
Oh man.
Right?
So this exam was
Yeah.
temporarily shortened during COVID times, 5 hours, but it's really a 7 hour test. So there's sections. The first section is each section is an hour and a half. The first section is chemistry and physics. So chemistry questions. The second section is cars, which is critical analysis and reasoning.
Yeah.
That one really is the sneakiest of them all, I think.
Of course. Yeah.
Then you get a little half an hour break while you're taking the exam, and then you do bio and biochemistry for another 1.5 hours, and then finally psych and social, which is my favorite. But
Right.
there's actually a favorite in the MCAT, and that's the one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the MCAT exam is this huge comprehensive exam that tests your knowledge on all those subjects. And what I was actually have told and was speaking to before earlier is that tests your knowledge, but it also tests other things that you didn't think that they would test. For example, one big thing is like your stamina.
Absolutely.
Like you could know all this information, and I'm sure you do know this information. You've probably been really good at it in your classes and things like that. But the fact that you have to take it back to back and have, your brain power diminishes for sure. So there's, a couple strategies people have said that have worked. But yeah, half of the battle is learning the content, and then the other half is like the test taking, and the test taking skills and learning about the test and how and what they're asking for, which is a big part. So
yeah. Okay. Thank you for that breakdown. Okay, so now what is your personal experience with this beautiful exam?
Yeah, my personal experience is I think you need a lot of structure and rigid like time management to be able to be successful in this exam. I also think like at the beginning, you're full force, you're bending over backwards to make sure you learn everything, you do everything correctly. And there's a thing called burnout. And you burn out, and then you get frustrated because you feel like you've taken all this time to study, and then you want to take a break. Then you take a break, and then it's like everything that you did for that first period of time doesn't count anymore. It's all completely erased. and I've learned that through the times. Like, for example, I've stated I began studying for this exam probably in a more structured way, probably summer 2019, to be honest. And I think in every little break that I take, I learn something new from each time. And like, again, the first time that I took a break, the biggest thing I noticed is no matter what, you need to take, honestly, at least 4 to 6 months. Like, and that's being very strict with your time, and being very, very structured. For example, if you say you're going to study during this time period, you study during that time period, but also not burning yourself out. So that's the tricky part, the balancing part. But so that's like the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned is in my second break is that it's not all about content, and that something that I definitely recommend is making sure when you're reading and learning about the content and whatnot, you're practicing with AAMC actual questions, because that's the only way to really understand what they want and what they're asking. So, and then the third thing is to do all that successfully together. And I think it's very hard when you're working full time. Going to school and all those things really do add up and take a lot of time. So it's hard sometimes to kind of like check off of work and then try to zone back in for, studying for the MCAT. But again, I do think like burning yourself out is a real thing for this exam. So finding that balance is like key. So being able to, because I know, like, I think the second time or the first time, for sure everything was MCAT related. I didn't do anything else but MCAT, and that only lasts for so long. Then you get burned out, and then it's like you no matter how much you try, you just don't want to do it and can't do it. So it's really important to make sure you balance. So you have some fun time for yourself, but also some MCAT time where it's not overwhelming. So
yeah. So thanks for those tips on burnout. We're gonna go deeper into that in about a minute. But you talked about content. So basically today I'm gonna do the least interruptions possible, right? Because I want our students to hear you out and like for you to have the utmost time to share with us like your experience, like just throughout.
Mhm.
So my questions, I hope that these questions, like I did a, over the mentoring period and all of that, like with PTS 3, like I have these questions here from students that I hope that most students will be able to relate to. So I'll just be like chipping in right there a little bit here, a little bit that. But yeah, you spoke about content. Kaplan versus Princeton, and even now exam crackers, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is? I mean, what are the differences, and what is your experience with all
Yeah.
three of them? I guess they are the three main companies now. I guess. Yeah.
They are the three main companies. I think I've had all three main companies. So
Yeah.
it's funny because they all have their pros and cons for sure. I do think out of all of them, if I had to choose, and no disrespect to any of the other companies, but
Yeah.
choose Princeton Review just because their questions are harder.
Mm.
And so that is a little more in line to the MCAT. I think exam crackers questions are too easy. The actual content is, I think, pretty good. And it helps you like kind of get the big picture. I think exam crackers is like a good one. If you had a whole year to study, the exam crackers is the first one you start with, I think. Because it'll make sure that you remember everything that you studied and it'll give you like the big overall picture. This is all my opinion. So,
Well, guys, I hope you're listening. Yeah. Yeah.
Then I would definitely say Kaplan is like the next step of like detail compared to the all three books. And Kaplan gives more details. Their questions are are a little harder, but again, Princeton Review I think has the hardest questions, and sometimes they're even harder than the MCAT. But the reason I recommend it is because if they are harder, that means you'll get good at taking that test strategy. That eventually, when you actually start doing the MCAT related questions, it'll be easier because you've kind of trained in this harder version.
Right.
But yeah, they all have their pros and cons. I don't know if Princeton Review's explanations are great. They're not. So that's why I actually kind of prefer exam crackers and Kaplan's explanations of things, even of the Princeton Review. Sometimes explanations of the answers are poor.
Okay.
So you kind of have to try a little bit of all of them. But if you had all the time in the world to study, start with exam crackers, Kaplan, and then Princeton Review. And then
that'd be great.
I know that would be great.
All three of them at once. Right, let's do it.
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
So take notes if you have to, please. All right. Yeah, I hope you guys learned a lot from Jamie today. So, yeah, and I hope I'm asking the right questions. So, interesting. Jamie, you talked about burnout. Before we move on to like your other tips, right? What is your coping method for burnout, and what are some tips you have about that?
Sure. I think the biggest thing about burnout is, like I said, don't try to overcommit your schedule. Make sure you're realistic, basically. So, for example, let's say, I don't know, on weekends or Sundays you go to church or something. And then you say, yeah, right after church, I'm going to study, I'm going to do this and blah, 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 blah. If you know that after church you hang out with your family for like 1 or 2 hours or something, then put that time in there because you're not going to be realistic in the sense that, oh, I'm going to do that. And then everybody's in your house, let's say. And then how realistic are you going to be? You're going to feel kind of down that you can't do what you usually do. So like, when you're creating your schedule, be very realistic of the time that you do things. Don't be like the best version of yourself because that's just unrealistic. It's not, it's just life happens. That's another tip. Life happens.
Life
There are
happens.
things that emergencies and things like that you have to take care of with your family, with school, with work. And so even like leave little gaps within your schedule for life happens because it happens and there's no we can't run away from it basically. Even if you have a favorite show that you're used to watching, schedule that in.
I was about to say, put that on hold. But but there are times where, we're talking about burnout here. So like, it's good to, I guess, like, it's good to schedule that time. Say like an hour or two, that way you don't burn out. Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying binge watch like a whole, like, no, don't do that. That you temporarily will have to put on hold. It's not conducive and it won't set the right mood for you to study. So definitely but just like 1 hour kind of or 30-minute breaks or something, just to make you realize that your life is not consumed by the MCAT. And this is not a torturous exam. It kind of is, but in the sense that, you want to kind of have like positive feelings about it, more like I can, succeed in it and things like that. Right. And trust me, that is so much easier than said. So, but for burnout, making sure that your schedule is realistic. Not the best version of your schedule, just the realistic schedule. Like even if you want to start with writing down everything that you do for 2 weeks, just so that you know exactly. So before you start studying MCAT, know exactly how you spend your time. Then when you put for MCAT, add MCAT studying and study schedule into your regular schedule, then you'll be more realistic as to, okay, look, this will be a good time and things like that. So those are my tips.
Yeah, thank you for that. So big takeaway message from there is doable, right? But just make sure that you don't burn out. Those are some tips from Jamie. That's why I brought Jamie on. Take notes. All right, take notes. Okay, so we're back to you just like rolling with the punches. Pretty much like whatever you want to tell us, we're all ears. So
sure.
Yeah.
One big thing I think people forget to talk about is actually your experience when you take the test. So I take the test in Yonkers. Was it Pearson? Pearson is the provider that provides the exam. So basically, you're supposed to get there at 7 a.m. And then there's a list of other people. There's a whole bunch of other people that are also taking that exam. The thing that you don't know is that some people are not only taking that exam, they're taking other exams. So they're also taking, I think, some like teacher exams and things like that. So first mistake that I made when I took the exam.
Jamie made a mistake? Okay, all right, you're listening to you. Wow, okay.
So the first mistake I made was to come dressed in jeans with a hoodie with a lot of pockets. And I didn't realize that they are extra secure and making sure that you don't have, that you don't have a way of cheating. So, okay, so let me start from the beginning. So you go in, there's a bunch of people waiting, then they call you up one by one. They register you, they check your name and your ID, the typical stuff. Then they give you a little locker space so you can put all your stuff. You have to put everything there. You can't take your water bottle. You can't take anything with you. And then they're like, okay, once everybody checks in, you go back, sit down, then they call you. And this is when you actually enter the actual facility with all the desks and computers. So that part I thought was going to be simple, pat you down, blah, blah, blah. I was wrong. They are very serious. They're more serious than an airport, which I was like, this is kind of scary.
Right.
So then she was just like, okay, everything, all my pockets, I had to physically take out and show that I don't have anything there. My jeans were way too long, so they were rolled up. She needed me to roll them down because she needed to make sure nothing was there.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So during those 10-minute breaks, pretty much not even 10 minutes, it's you know, let's say
Yep.
5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
for you to eat and all that. So you did all that in those 10 minutes.
Correct. So that's the other kicker. So this was me entering the exam.
Oh,
Every time you come out, you have to do that whole process to go back into the exam. So I'm going to get to that in a second. But so yeah. So then the people who wear glasses, you have to take off your glasses. They have like a scanner, I guess, to make sure it's not like those Google glasses that give you information.
That's good.
Whatever. Long story short, to get into the exam, it probably took me 10 minutes because I had all this pockets, all this stuff that I had to really prove that I'm not cheating, which I wasn't cheating.
Right.
Was not prepared to. I didn't think that it was like to that level of detail.
To that level, right.
So then I go, I'm inside, I'm like, okay, wow, that took a lot of time. Okay, whatever, the exam doesn't start until you actually sit down. So I sit down, I take the chem and phys part, and then I go out for that 10-minute break. And I'm like, oh, okay, I have 10 minutes, go to the bathroom, use the bathroom, 10 minutes flies. And then I come back, and guess what? There was 2 people also coming back. And so I had to wait.
Oh, man.
It was included in your 10 minutes. So by the time they're finished, it's up to me. They have to do that whole search that they did at the beginning, the same exact thing. Like if I don't know how I would have, whatever. Wow. It's to each their own. I'm sure there's a way to cheat if people wanted to. So by the time I started my cards, I already started with 2 minutes. Like it already started. The exam starts for like, the next section. So I was already 2 minutes. Like 2 minutes had already started, and that's the worst thing to do for cards.
Also, about to say, how did you deal with that? Because wow,
that is the worst for cars. That after that whole experience, I didn't leave for any other breaks because I was like, this is not even worth it. And so, because that literally the only way I would have been able to use that 10-minute break correctly is after I went, used the bathroom, and came right back. Like, that's it. Because that whole process, and like I said, you're not the only one that's also going through that process. There's only one person that checks you, and there's only one way to enter the exam room. The exam room also has like 12 to 15 different cubicles. And they're very serious. I think I'm a nerd. I'm a usual like shaking my leg kind of person. And then in the exam, I think I shook it for too long, and then the lady came and was like, "Stop."
Oh, she actually. Oh wow. Okay.
And I was like, "Oh snap!" And so those are little things to remember. And also, like I said, another thing that distracted me a little bit, and so these are things that you should prepare for, is that like I thought everybody was taking the MCAT, but they are not. And one of the exams, some people have to type, and so even though you had the earplugs and everything,
you could hear
this person was typing really hard too. It was like and really fast. I think they had a couple minutes left. So
they should tell people like that, yo, we got some MCAT students here. Please take them into consideration, right?
I know.
Like, come on. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So all of that
must be tough.
And the person's typing really hard, and I was trying not to think about it. I'm trying to shake my leg so that I don't think about it. Then the person told me I can't shake my leg. Long story short, that exam I definitely voided because I didn't want to know my grade, and I knew I didn't perform my best. I think all of that, especially if you're like an anxious person, just made the anxiety go really high. And I'm a semi-anxious person, so that definitely I was not prepared for that. I did not know that there was going to be all those levels of security and the details and the distractions and things like that.
So you will say that practice makes sense, right? Makes a lot of sense. Like, make sure you're practicing your breaks, and timing yourself, and getting used to that kind of environment. I may even go to an extent of saying that maybe I don't know what you say about this, but try to practice actually coming back and the exam running about 2 minutes earlier. I don't know about that, but I guess to get yourself, just in case that something happens, what will you say to that?
Yeah, no, I agree. If when I do it again, I'm definitely just gonna use just go for necessity and come back as fast as I can.
Right.
You just never know. You never know how many people are gonna be ahead. You just don't know, if something malfunctions with the people at the front or something, and then your exam keeps going. Like there's no pausing, there's no anything like that. So I thought I was prepared, but I definitely wasn't. And that's one thing that seems so like such a small detail, that you think that that can't be too bad, but it makes a difference. And if you at least have that knowledge, then you'll at least a little more prepared. So that's why I like to share that information to as many folks as possible, because
yes, guys, I hope you're taking notes. See, I'm playing. I hope I'm doing well at this, but I'm playing devil's advocate for you guys. So so let's do this. All right. Yeah, that's wow. Okay. Yeah. What else? You know what? Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
So since you just brought that up about stamina, right? What are your tips for students like out there? And actually, also, what food do you take to the exam? Like, what do you suggest people eat during the exam?
That's a great question. Right? Those are great questions. So the first question, let's do the food part question first. Whatever you decide to eat, make sure you practice that when you're eating let's say when you're taking a practice exam. Do the same exact foods, because you don't want, for some food to sit bad in your stomach, and then now you have to try to run for the bathroom. And like I told you, this whole process is really long. So you don't want that. So I definitely recommend for if you need to eat between the breaks, again, go to the bathroom, go to your locker. Remember, you have to open your locker. All of that takes time. You have to open your locker and eat maybe some nuts or something that's quick to put in your mouth and grab. And then for your lunch break, something small. I would say a sandwich, probably some, even maybe some carrots, celery, some good.
So when you say lunch break, you're referring to that 30-minute break right before biochem, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
And after cars. All right.
Yep. And that little 30-minute break, that's to make sure every break take 10% out of it for you to do other things. So because you have to like I said, do the whole process and whatnot. You even have to log into your computer, all that stuff. So yeah, then the last break I didn't take any. I didn't eat anything. I think if I had, like I said, the first time I got so traumatized by the whole first experience, my first break, that I didn't take any of the breaks, which I don't recommend as well. But for sure, at least use your first break to use the bathroom. Your 30-minute break to eat something, and then if you want to take your last break, then maybe some nuts or something like that.
Okay. And what did you eat the day? No, not the day. What I mean to say is in the morning before going to the exam. What did you eat? Yeah, because also one thing is some people don't eat early in the morning. Some complaints that I've gotten from some of our students is that they're I'm not an an early morning person, or I don't eat early in the morning. So what would you suggest for that as well?
Yeah, I do eat in the morning, so that particular part is not an issue for me. But definitely you have to eat, even if you're not a morning eater, just because, like I said, the exam is so long and it drains you that you need that protein, or I think I ate hard-boiled eggs with vegetables. And I'm a coffee drinker, so I drink coffee. But
coffee, okay.
Don't try to drink coffee if
you've never
drinking coffee.
I don't.
A lot of years, so that's why I say that. But
yeah.
Though that in itself could cause because I've drank coffee so many years, I know how my body reacts to it or not. But most people, when they drink coffee, they use the bathroom fast, so you don't want that.
So pretty much whatever you want to eat, practice it ahead of time, right? Over several practice exams, pretty much.
Exactly. To know exactly how your body reacts to it and things like that, because the worst case scenario is while you're there, your body reacts to it, and then you don't need that. You already have too much anxiety within taking the exam. You don't need that extra layer of anxiety. And then in terms of stamina, it's so true. For example, psychosocial is like where I'm very high in, but because it's one of the last, it's true. You have to get good at like spending that long period of time taking the exam and being full like on it the whole time. I know when I took the exam, I got to the section. There were things that I know for sure I would have gotten if it was like the first section, but because I was already like tired and like, the whole experience wasn't that great. I was just, I'm sure I could have done better if it was like, if the only section I did, but I still think I did pretty good, even though I will never know because I avoided that exam score. But that's an option, by the way, that they'll tell you after you take the exam. So after you do section, there's a disclaimer that says, would you like to avoid this exam score? No one will know your score. You won't know. They won't know. They won't grade it basically. And so they give everybody that option. It's yes or no. And so I clicked yes, but most people would click no, and then
right.
But,
okay.
Yeah.
So, what was it I was going to ask? There we go. Right. About avoiding the exam, right? Obviously, my hope is that no one listening to us will go through that experience. That is exactly why I have Jamie here on board with us to share her experience with us so that we can all learn from her mistakes, learn and be prepared for the exam, right? So you want to be as prepared as possible for the exam. But saying that, Jamie, if someone goes through that process and ends up voiding an exam or the MCAT exam, it obviously has a toll on you psychologically, right? How do you deal with that after the exam?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely has a toll on you because you start second guessing yourself and saying, maybe I didn't, maybe I could have, maybe I should have gotten the score, then I'll know where I stand. But deep down, if you are studying and practicing often, you'll have a feeling of how engaged exactly how you did or how strong your exam is. And like I said, that experience, there was so much going on that I knew I did not put my best performance. And I was like, I think when you're younger, you're always like, well, what if? What if somehow
that is interesting. Now we have the what if series like with Marvel. So okay, what if, right?
But you're just like, what if? Maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit or whatnot. I think if you start practicing and if you're consistently practicing and exactly when you've gotten right or wrong answers when you're practicing, you'll know that when you take the exam, you'll have that feeling like, nah, that wasn't my best foot forward. And I'm definitely, for me, it was like, I definitely did not hit 500. There's no point in me trying to, there was no point in me trying to act like I would get that or higher. Yeah. So, I avoided the exam, but I recommended it only if like I said, you've been practicing, been consistent, and you realize that there were so many other factors that affected how you took the test that you were not going to hit at least the 500 mark. That's just my opinion, but yeah.
Okay. So we all like free stuff. All right, I'm gonna hit a plus on that. We'll come on to that. I'm gonna leave that for the last section. But before that, Jamie, what do you use to plan out your daily study schedule and all that? What kind of softwares do you use?
Yeah, I'm actually a little old school, so I use Excel. I like Excel in general. But I'm sure there are more updated platforms and things like that, softwares and things like that could help with that. But if you want to go back to basics, just use Excel. Be very creative in how you use Excel too. So, and because I use it so often, I know. Like,
yeah. By the way, she's like an expert with Excel. So, yeah.
That's my go-to. But there's definitely, I'm sure, other softwares and things that could help. But basically, it's really just basically planning out at least 30-minute intervals in your whole day. So from whatever time you wake up to whatever time you go to sleep, and then, you know, fitting in, like I said, everything realistically that your regular schedule is, and then adding your MCAT studying.
Right. So I know a lot of students listening like use Google stuff. So pretty much like Google Calendar and all that. What do you suggest with that? Is that a good option as well?
I think Google Calendar is a good option. I will admit that I've used it. And like after a while I would get those notifications like, oh, I should be doing this. And I kind of ignored it. So that might be my personal thing.
Okay.
But I think one thing about Google Calendar that I would say, if you do use it, use it in either one or two ways. So either use it in like, oh, from 6 to 8, I'm going to be studying in this subject, and keep it very general. Or you could go each week and be very specific about exactly you're going to study. So for example, you start at the beginning of the week, let's say Sunday or Monday, and say this week, based on what I did last week, I'm studying this or whatnot. So make it very like in that sense kind of flexible, because you'll be targeting exactly and being very intentional, basically targeting and being very intentional of what you're going to schedule your time to do those things. But I mean, it depends on, you know, what kind of learner you are as well. And, you know, but I think I started doing that at one point, and that actually did help me. Like, for example, I was being very specific, like, but I wouldn't, at the beginning I did like, oh, this, I'm going to do bio and biochem week, blah, 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 blah. Then I started realizing that it was just like, I needed more directions. So I started going at the beginning of the week and being very specific. I'm going to study amino acids. I'm going to study the Krebs cycle this week and blah, blah, blah. And then also changing it, because let's say I say that I'm going to study this for 2 hours and I'm going to get it all of a sudden. That's depending on how I do and how I study, then adapting that to change it to say, oh, maybe I'll add another hour here to make sure I really, really know it. So yeah, being flexible and adaptable is pretty key in when making your schedules.
All right, take home message here is be good at time management, right? Like pretty much make sure that you're putting down everything you're gonna do in your day, like to the dot. So yeah, like these are resources that Jamie's putting out there, and ideas she's putting out there. Make sure you test them out, and whatever way you find that works for you, stick to it, right? Pretty much the whole thing is make sure that you're being effective and I guess like productive in that sense. Okay. Yeah, Jimmy.
Yeah. One more thing that I would recommend is,
yes, please.
You may think that you know what, like how your schedule and how you should structure it, but be flexible in the sense that if you say, oh, I'm going to do it this way and it's not working, change it. Like that's one thing. Sometimes we get stuck in our ways of thinking, oh no, it has to be done this way. It has to be done this way. That we waste a lot of energy and we're not being smart and intentional in our study. So change it, like find out a different way and try it. Like I think the first month is you doing that, trying different ways and trying it and seeing what works. And then what's working works for a limited amount of time, and then you have to change it up again. So be flexible with yourself, be forgiving to yourself, and make sure you change it up, because I think it's important. So.
Right, so be flexible and adaptable. All right, great. Okay, now the free stuff. Yeah, let's go. So like we all like freebies. So what are the free resources out there to help us with the MCAT, please? Yeah,
I think like once you start like creating a network of like people who are taking the MCAT, everybody has a little bit of free stuff everywhere, I think. Either on Google Drive, and everybody saves it, and then they're able to share it. So if anybody does want any free resources, I have a bunch that I would be willing and, of course, more than happy to share. So you guys can email me. my last name, which is Camino, Camino, Jamie, Jamie, @gmail.com. And this are a whole bunch of resources, like we're talking about Princeton review books, exam cracker books, Kaplan books. People, I don't know how legal this is, but we definitely have PDF versions of all that stuff. So definitely, once you start talking with people who are taking MCAT, they're like, oh, I have that, and then you just start sharing it. So I have a good amount of free resources, and I'm sure you can find them online as well. But definitely.
Sure. Yeah, I'll put Jamie's email in her, in the description, so check it out. Right.
Definitely. I'll be more than happy to share that. I have a whole folder in my drive of crap that I've collected throughout the years. So definitely. There's a lot of free resources.
For sure. Yeah. See, I can't leave without talking about this. Reddit, right? You're talking about free resources. So let's talk about Reddit. What's up with Reddit?
Nope, that you're right. I totally forgot about Reddit. Yes, Reddit is your key source of free resources, to be honest. And the only problem with Reddit is sometimes, if you could go down a web of spending way too much time on Reddit, and people are expressing their feelings, so sometimes there's good and bad. So once people go really down the Debbie Down depressive mode, then you start going into it too, and then it take a lot of time and stuff like that. But in terms of resources, like I said, that's part of the network of network online, virtual, with all those folks that you'll never meet, and the network with students and stuff like that that are part of your campus or part of a group that you're part of and things like that. But definitely Reddit has amazing resources. There's people who put their study guides, who put their Excel sheets of mnemonics and things that help for sure. So Reddit is a great resource to have and everything. For sure, there's someone who created, and I'm sure everybody has seen it by now, but a study guide of 50 pages, I think, or 70 pages.
Talking about Bow Down?
Yes, exactly.
Whoever that person is, God bless you. So
God bless them.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So and Reddit is where you can find all that stuff. So definitely Reddit is the resource to go to, so for sure.
For sure. You talked about mnemonics. That reminds me. Anki.
Yes.
Please, let's talk about Anki. What up with Anki?
Anki is going to be your new best friend. But that whole Anki process takes you're not good at it from the get-go. Get good at it. And see, this is the part of the test taking that takes so much time. Getting good at doing your Anki. But so long story short, Anki is basically flashcards, but they do it web and you can put it on your phone as well. And the whole theory behind it is called spaced repetition. So basically, you repeat, let's say, a card or some sort of topic. You get that information. You could create the Anki card in different ways. You could either have it missing, fill in the blank. You could also have it ask a question. You could also have it show an animation. So there's different ways to use Anki. But basically, what you do is you'll get the same flashcard, and then you'll have three, so let's say you get a question and you answer it, and you got it right. And you got it right really fast. It was easy for you to know. So there's three levels of what you could choose. I think it's green. I haven't used it in a minute now, but it's that it gets repeated within a couple of days, or it gets repeated within 10 minutes, or it gets repeated in a minute, let's say. So if you put that you get it repeated in a minute, it's because you struggled with that question or you didn't know the answer, so you wanted to come back again so that you could, it gets repeated in your head, and then you start to memorize it and know it and things like that. And then the other two is like, let's say you got it really quick, then you use the one that, comes back in a day, because that means you know it, and it'll come back in a day or so when you redo the actual flashcard. And then the middle one is if you were in between, like you struggled a little bit with part of the question and you didn't, and then it'll choose based on what you choose for those, when to repeat that question. But long story short is, Anki is your best friend, but also could be your great enemy if you're not doing it correctly. And all YouTube is also like, you could spend hours looking at people like show you how to do Anki flashcards and things like that.
Right.
But it depends on.
I'll be sure to link some of those below. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
It depends how you are as a learner and things like that. What I've realized while doing this, that it's my Anki, and this is probably for me, pertains to me, maybe does not apply to all, but it is to kind of ask more general questions, and not be so specific, so that, like, say, like, draw out the Krebs cycle, instead of like saying, what's this section of the Krebs cycle, blah blah blah, because then the more accustomed, and the quicker that I could draw out the Krebs cycle in all detail and then go through all the layers in my head, the stronger and the faster I will do when that comes up in the exam. And the Krebs cycle always comes up in the exam. Those are the amino acids as well. You got to know your amino acids. You got to know the pKa's. You got to know the short. You got to know everything about the amino acids. The amino acids is like the key. Like, there's so many questions throughout the exam that talk about the amino acids in different ways that you have to make sure that you're really, 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 really strong. And so, Anki, like I said, check some YouTube resources. Also, try some of them out. Some of them might work for you. Some of them might not work for you. But throughout studying, what I realized, the easiest Anki cards to make is psych and social, because they're honestly, psych and social is a lot of definition. And so so those are easy to make. But for the other two sections, you have to, for me, I was more general towards the end, and I thought that was more helpful. So like, instead of saying, being specific, like, what of this part of the Krebs cycle, blah, blah, I was like, draw out the whole Krebs cycle. And then it would take more time to finish that flashcard or Anki card, but it forced me to do things like, if I didn't know it, I would put it that it comes back in a minute, and then it would force me to like really get strong and know that information. So that's my 2 cents.
Ooh, wow. That's a lot today we've covered.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, thank you. I know people listening are like, thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much. Yeah, we spread all the things out there. Thank you so much, Jamie. Any other tips? Any other tips, like general tips you have? As we bring this to an end.
Yeah. I think, like, really get into your, like, you probably haven't done math in a while, but there are shortcut math tricks that you should learn. And I think there's even like a book that I started using, and it was like math tricks. I don't know if I have it, and I'll send before it so he could post it. But basically, it's just like that's half of the battle of the test. Like, for example, you might know it, but you may spend way too much time trying to find the exact like number so that it matches, the exact number that you see as one of the choices, when you could do more, what is it called? Not guessing, estimates, basically. You could do more estimates and then find an answer that's close enough to what the answer options are. So the getting kind of fast and doing your maths, like, going forward, once you start your MCAT test, no calculators. You can't use calculator for anything. The more you push yourself to use your mind and all the mental math, the easier it'll get when it comes to the actual exam. So that's one big tip for sure. Like, make sure because because you could know how to solve it, but if you take so much time in solving it, the math and blah, blah, first of all, you have to go through a whole bunch of other questions, 59 questions in total for that section. So you got to be fast. You got to do that like within a minute and a half. Like, so make sure that you're good at that and practice that. And then there was something else I was going to say. Yeah, and I think like the biggest, we didn't talk about cars before.
Oh my! See, look at this.
Cars.
Yeah. Don't worry. Spell it. Really. That's the
All
course.
Cars is one of those things.
Cars.
Cars.
Yeah.
Cars is one of those things that you start out thinking, oh, I got this. I know how to read. I know how to do all that stuff. I'm going to leave it towards the end. Leave it towards the end. Wrong decision. You realize that it's not, like you should have started from the beginning. So what you do is you have to basically study from the very beginning. Cars, put that in your schedule, no matter what, even if it's one passage a day, you have to build your stamina in that. I think the hardest part about cars is, well, I think two big parts about cars is that you have 53 questions in an hour and a half, and you realize how much time each one takes because the questions are not as straightforward as you think. They're a little tricky. So you think that you know the answer, but then you don't. The only thing that I could say is that the answers to all the questions are in the passage. I know that sounds funny, but they are in the passage. Always refer back to the passage. My biggest recommendation is just get good at learning the questions, learning the passage, learning how to read it, and then pencil in how to do it at a shorter period of time. So for example, at the beginning, if it takes you 15 to 20 minutes to do one passage, but do it correctly in the sense that you're reading it, you're understanding the author's voice, you're understanding, once again, that's another big thing. Your opinion doesn't matter.
Your opinion doesn't matter.
Your opinion of the passage doesn't matter. What matters is the author's opinion. So if the author's opinion of the passage is completely different from yours, don't come with your own like your own knowledge and things about whatever the topic is, right? So yeah, one thing is the first couple of times when you're doing cars, take 15 to 20 minutes to really understand the passage, really understand where the author is coming from, really understand like keywords where the author is changing their direction.
Okay, you mean during the practice exams, correct, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay, I just needed to say that just in case, just so that someone doesn't go do that during the exam itself.
Oh, no.
Right, yeah. Right.
Let's say it takes you 4 to 5 to 6 to 9 months from studying for the exam. Cars should be at the very beginning. You should start cars from the beginning. The more you practice, the better you get at it, for sure. So yeah, this is all practice. So when we're practicing cars, take 15 to 20 minutes to really understand the exam, to really understand the passage, understand the author's tone, understand where he's changing his direction, understand his sarcasm or his or her sarcasm, the author's sarcasm, because that's what they're going to question you about. Not really the knowledge of the stuff, but they're going to question like, what does the author think about this? Or
what does the author think about this?
Yeah, exactly. So then getting good at that, then you chip away. Like let's say it takes you 15 minutes, then you chip away let's say you do that for a whole month, then you chip away 1 minute each 2 weeks. So for example, it took me 15 minutes. After that, it will take me 14 minutes, and then it'll take me 13 minutes. Then basically you have to go all the way down till it takes you 9 minutes. But once you get really good at it, and you'll see that even if you were really good at it with 15 minutes, you won't be really good at it, let's say with 14, 13, 12, blah, blah, blah. So all of that you have to get used to. And so you basically chip away, and then you start practicing only 9 minutes, probably for the last 2 months right before the exam. You start making sure that you can do each passage within 9 minutes or less, because you want to answer the questions really fast. You want to have time to go back to the passage and make sure that you're answering the question correctly.
Yeah. Aha. So what I see you're saying here is that there are 9 passages for cars, right? And so it is an hour, 30 minutes exactly as you said. But what you're trying to drive at is we should make sure that we are practicing 9 minutes and below to finish the passage. So we're having that buffer time, right, between 9 and 10 minutes. So we have at least like 1 minute for 1 or 2 minutes for any unseen circumstances, right? Or I guess like you have more time for that passage. So that's what we're trying to get at.
Yeah. Basically,
that's good. That's good.
You should get to a point where you're reading the whole passage in like 5 to 7 minutes, and then using that other time to do the questions.
Right.
And one habit that you'll do at the beginning phases is to go, when you're answering the questions, go back and go, okay, where in the passage do I have evidence that this is the answer? And once you get good at that, then you'll get faster at doing that, and then you get better at cars, hopefully. Cars is one of those sections.
Right. Yeah. So like practice, guys. Practice. Pretty much the key. Wow, Jamie, I mean, like, you spilled so much gold today. I mean, it's like, right?
I know. You're like, yeah, we could talk about this even more. There's so much information, yeah.
Right? It's like, this needs like a part 5 or something, like part 2, 3, 4, 5. Lot of information. All right, so guys, I'll make sure I link Jamie's email down below so that you can reach out to her. Any questions, any follow-ups you have for her, you can do that. But yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, so join me to say big thank you to Jamie, taking time out of her day, busy schedule to join us and share with us her experience on the MCAT. Jamie, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. And I know that a lot of students out there, have been touched. My hope is that they're motivated, that this is doable.
It's definitely doable.
Right, this is doable. And although it's not easy, it is doable. All right, guys. I hope you're blessed. See you in the 5th episode. Thank you so much, Jamie. All right, guys. See y'all.
Good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.